Everyone, welcome to this 8th session of PGT Upskill Program of IPS Subspecialty Section. We PGT team comprising of Chairperson Dr. Saul Amin, Co-Chairperson Dr. Dhruv Jyoti, Convener myself Dr. Chintan, and Advisor Dr. Rasmin, as well as EC Coordinator Dr. Sujit Sarkil. Welcome you all to have this very important lecture, which is going to be delivered by our not other than the chairperson, Dr. Saul Amin only. So without waiting, I will just request, as per our tradition, to PG student Dr. Ayushi to introduce our speakers today. Ayushi.
Yes. A very good evening to everyone. I'm Dr. Ayushi Jingpangi, first year psychiatry resident from Patna Medical College and Hospital. And I would like to introduce everyone to Dr. Shahul Amin. He has passed his MD from the Central Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi, and presently he is a consultant psychiatrist in St. Thomas Hospital, Changanacheri. He is also the editor of Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine from 2017 and the chairperson of IPS PGT Updation Specialty Section. He is the co-chairperson of the IAPP Research and Publication Committee and also the deputy editor of Indian Journal of Private Psychiatry. He is the co-editor of the book, The Primer of Research, Publication and Presentation, that is published by IPS, and was also the editor of the Kerala Journal of Psychiatry from 2014 till 2018. He is also the author of e-book, A Companion to Fish's Psychopathology, that is widely read by the PGs. He has also written more than 100 articles on mental health in Malayalam periodicals and was columnist in Mathrubhumi, Arogya Masika, and Mangalam Weekly. And he was also the guest editor of IJB Supplement on MHCA 2017 and has about 20 publications in PubMed indexed journals. He has been awarded the Certificate of Excellence for the best case presentation in annual National Conference of IAPP in 2013 and was also elected for the Early Career Psychiatrist Program of Asian Federation of Psychiatric Societies that was held in Colombo in 2013. He was also recommended by the IPS to attend the Young Health Professionals track at the International Congress of WPA that was held in Bucharest, Romania in 2015. So with this, I would like to invite Dr. Shahul Amin with us. Thank you.
Is the slide full screen now? Hello?
Not yet. Just it is upper part is visible.
Only the upper part?
Yes.
Just let me. Now?
Yes.
Now the full is visible now?
Yes, visible.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thanks, Chintan and Ayushi, and thanks everyone for being here today evening. So today we will be discussing how to make your PowerPoint slides more effective. Some parts of this topic were already covered by some of our previous speakers. Dr. Vihang Wahiya in our second presentation spoke in detail about how to make a presentation. Then Dr. Varun Mehta, when he was talking about how to present a seminar, he also had touched upon various topics. But on a topic like this, it is always better if you get perspectives of multiple speakers so that you can develop your own style and you can choose whatever you feel is the best for your kind of way of working. And one, I should agree that like one of the problem with the topics like this is that most of the tips that I'm going to share are mostly common sense. If you spend some time with PowerPoint, if you make 2-3 presentations, then you will know, or you watch others presenting, then you will know how it should be done. Still, like as Voltaire famously said centuries ago, common sense is not so common. So because of that, I will be giving you a summary of some of the common sense points that you should remember when you are preparing your PowerPoint slides or when you are making the presentations. Let us start with a brief question just to know what you people feel. Please give your opinion on this. So 7 votes have been registered. I think all of you, who are there, except for the committee people, 8 people. So like, what is the major purpose of a PowerPoint slide? You may feel it is all of the above. Let us see what exactly is that. So one governing principle, like when you are choosing, when you are like making various decisions about like how your slide should be, what kind of background you should use, what kind of design you should use, what kind of style, images, font you should use, what all you should include in your slides. So there are like there is one governing principle. Before that, I would like to give you the answer. The answer was actually one, that as an aid to the like audience. As they say in Hollywood, no, the viewer is the king, the audience is the king. It is not as a like a handout, because a handout you can prepare separately. It is not because if you ideally like all of the above is the answer, but the problem is if you want the PowerPoint. Yeah, that was the result. 2 people got it, the audience. So that is the answer, because the problem is if you want the slides to do multiple tasks, like serve as a handout, serve as a prompt to you, the speaker, then basically it will not succeed in performing any of the tasks efficiently. So you should always know that like the purpose of the slides is to make the points clear to the audience, period. If you want to give a handout, you give a separate printout, a separate longer write-up and things like that. And there is no need for you, the speaker, to take your prompts from the slides. You have to know your content well. You should not be needing any prompt. If you want, again, you can keep another printout with you also. Other than that, like the slides should be to make it clear for the audience. Now, another governing principle is again like what kind of font to use, what kind of style to use. Here also, basically, this is also dictated by who is your audience, what kind of audience you have. For example, suppose you are supposed to give a lecture on substance abuse to some adolescents or college students. There you may want very beautiful slides, lots of videos, cartoons, animations, things like that, so that like they feel the presentation interesting. They you are able to sustain their interest. On the other hand, suppose you are making a presentation of your thesis protocol to your faculty, to your HOD, your guide and all. There they may not be in a mood to listen to lots of bells and whistles. No? So there it is better if you get to the point fast and quick. So that is what, like everything is determined by the audience, not that I want to be known as the best PowerPoint designer of my department. I want to make more beautiful slides than my batchmate who made the presentation last week. Nothing like that. Though everything is determined by your audience. That's all. Now we will look at like the various components of PowerPoint, how to make them the most effective, the most efficient, the most audience friendly, starting with the text part. So one basic take that even the previous speakers on this topic have also highlighted is that you should limit the information to essentials. As I told you, this is not a handout. You need not even write in complete sentences. It should be the basic minimum, especially in these days, because previously all this information was projected on big screens and people were able to see that. Now, most of the people will be watching you on their phones. So if there's a lot of information, they will not be able to even see that. So you should make very succinct points, summarize the whatever message you want to convey. Definitions are an exception. Like if you want to give a definition of obsession, compulsion, thing like their quality of life, then obviously you should give it in entirety. Otherwise, the point may not be conveyed to the audience. Still, even when you are putting an entire paragraph on a slide, you should not be reading it out to them, because your reading speed and their reading speed may be different. So what you should say is, you please read this and you stop. Then you let them read that. Then how to know whether they have finished or not? Once you have allowed them to start reading, you also start reading at a normal pace. You already know the content, still as a normal pace you start reading. And when you stop reading, most likely they are also finished reading. So then you can proceed. That is what. So you should not be reading out even the paragraphs that you have on your slides. I write in point form, not in I did not write. You should not be writing in a point you should be writing in a point form. I did not write like that. No. I wrote like write in point form. So as brief, as succinct as possible. And as you can see here, like use different font size for the main point and the secondary point. So that is how the audience will see like what is more important, what is less important and all. Many people use the same font size for everything. That is not good to see also. So this is how you should be doing there. For secondary points, use a smaller font size. And capitalization, all of you may know that in digital medium, if you say everything in full caps, it is like equivalent to shouting in your real life. So you should not do that also. If it is everything is in capital letters, it is more difficult to read, more cumbersome to read also. So you should use that only very sparingly. Now also when it is the time to select the kind of fonts that you want to use in your slides. Basically the fonts are classified into two. These projecting features at the end of this E, they are called serifs, these three. And this does not have that. So based on that, whether the font has a serif or not, the fonts are classified into, as you may guess, sans serif and serif. Sans serif means those fonts that do not have the serifs, while serif fonts are those that have those projecting features serif. So for slides, you should be using sans serif fonts because they are more readable on screens and slides, and also that is for your titles and also for your text. Don't use serif fonts, use the sans serif fonts. And also you should have a consistent style throughout your slides. Many people I have seen, they keep changing the style of the slide from one section to the other, or even from one slide to the other. So throughout your presentation, you should be using the same font. Maybe for all titles, you can have the same font. For all the text, you can have another font. Other than that, you should not be changing the font. That will be confusing, and that will take the attention away from the content to the form, to the slides, not to what they are trying to convey. Likewise, the font size, colors of the fonts, bullet dingbats means the kind of design that you have for the bullets. These small dots here. So even all those should be kept consistent. And also weights. Weights means actually whatever you are doing to highlight some of the text. Maybe you may be using bold in a definition. You may be using bold to highlight one word. So if you are doing that, use that throughout the presentation. It's not that in one slide it is bold, in another slide it is underlined, in another slide it is italics. Not like that. So all these should be consistent throughout the presentation. Yeah, I hope you got the message. Like you should proofread it thoroughly, especially in important presentations. Otherwise, especially in your award papers and all, there are separate marks for how at least about 1/5 of the mark or 1/3 of the marks of the presentation go to the PowerPoint itself. So if you have typos, spelling mistakes there now, all that may not get you good marks. Many a time PowerPoint itself does that automatic spell checker, which is there, it will underline some of the words and tell you that this needs correction. Otherwise, what you should do is you can take a printout and read, because reading from the screen, you may miss many issues. So it is better to take a printout and read and see whether there are any typos. And use builds. So if you want to follow only one of my suggestions from this presentation, I would suggest you follow this one, using builds. And before I explain what exactly is a build, let me show you a conventional slide. This is a slide from one of my own past presentations. It is about a class I took for some counselors on CBT for depression. Please see the slide. It is not about the content of the slide anyway. So when a speaker changes to a slide like this, what happens? This I have seen even in the presentations made in this series also. What happens is the speaker projects a slide like this, then the speaker reads the first point. In depression, it is understandable that one may feel a lack of. Then the reader, then the speaker explains that what all examples, descriptions, everything the speaker give. But what will be the audience doing at the time? They will not be listening to the speaker. They will be reading the rest of the slide when the speaker is busy explaining. So that way their concentration is lost. They are not paying attention to what the speaker is saying. They are reading the rest of the slide. And after that, what they will do? Once they read the slide, they will try to make some sense of their own, to give some interpretation of their own to the text. Then they will start passively waiting for the slide to change so that they can read the next slide. So that should not happen. So at that time, you should be projecting only one of the lines. Then you explain that. That is what builds mean. First, you show your first point, then you explain whatever you want about that. Then only you make the second point appear. This can be easily done in PowerPoint using the animation feature. So once you explain that, you go to the next point, then the next point, like that. That way, like the audience's attention will be on you, on what you are saying. They will not be busy reading ahead, and so you will not lose your audience. So like previously I used this slide, but I did not use any build here. No, I just showed all the words at the same time. Why? Because this is not that important. I don't have to explain, like it is not that I have to speak for 2 minutes about font, 2 minutes about size, something like that. So you use build only when it is necessary, only when you have to explain about each and every point. Otherwise, if you use build for a slide like this, that is basically a waste of time. So that should not happen. Now moving on to this, I think all of you know what this means. Bulleted lists. These are called bullets. And especially in like day-long conferences or maybe your ANSIPs and zonal conferences which last 2-3 days, no, you listen to presentation after presentation in which the speakers have one slide after the other. We use full of bullet points. Now that is even a phrase called death by PowerPoint. It is about like having to sit through bullet point after bullet point. So anybody knows why they are called bullet points? Okay, like it's actually a joke. Actually, there is a cartoon. I hope all of you are able to read that. So here is a presentation full of points and bullet points, and please shoot me now. So a bullet is basically you're shooting the like viewers with your bullet. So what I'm trying to say is you should avoid that. It should not be like your presentation should not be full of slides that has one bullet point after another. There should be some variety in your slides. So what to do for that? So for that, you can have other like techniques also. It is not just bullet points. So some of the techniques that can be easily used include using appropriate images and using smart art, etc. Images, all of you know, many people do use images. So there are 1 or 2 points I would like to say about that. Like many of us, you do a search in Google Images and we take one image and put it in the slide without paying much attention to the size or actual size, how many pixels are there. The problem is even in the fonts and all it is okay, but especially if you are going to project the slide on a big screen, you know, if the image is not of sufficient size, it will not be clear. There will be a lot of pixelation in the images. So how to ensure that your image is of sufficient quality? It is easy. Basically in Google Images itself, if you click this tools, if you click that, you will get some more menu items. Here you can choose. So if you go for the, you select the large, then they will give you some images that are large enough so that if you put on your slide, it will look very clear and clean to the audience. On the same like this thing, you can see there is one thing called usage rights, because usually to make a presentation in your department and all, you need not be bothered about copyright and all. Nobody is going to come and ask you. At the same time, suppose your presentation, the slides or the video is going to be put online in the YouTube channel of your institution or maybe in the website of your institution and all, then maybe in the future, you know, there may be some like even YouTube itself, if we have a lot of copyrighted information, YouTube even itself will not allow that. So, and also sometimes others may raise issues, the original copyright owner, because they may have kept it for selling or something. So how to like find images that you can use like without getting any fear about copyright. This usage rights. If you click that, you will see like Creative Commons license. So if you click on that, you will get a lot of images which you may have to give an attribution. Somewhere you have to write this is from this source. That is all. If you attribute the original source, you are free to use such images without fear of any legal hassles. Especially for like your department website or department channel. Don't personally fine. Department wise, it is better to go for like some of these like copyright free images. Now, especially some of your like research presentations will have some data if you are presenting an award paper and all. And all of you know that data is more boring than even text, right? To look at a lot of statistics and tables and things like that, it is very difficult to sustain attention there. So some of the techniques you can use there include like even there you can use some photos and illustrations and all to make your slides more interesting, especially in award papers, as I told, because there you are going to get specific marks for your the quality of your slides. For example, you found out that 1 in 5 person had maybe an adverse effect or one particular symptom and all. So rather than merely putting that in the text, 1 in 5 patients had such and such, you can use an image like this, and then you can explain that you can say to the audience that 1 in 5 was the proportion. So that way your slides become more interesting and the content will be memorized in a better manner by the audience. And also in the PowerPoint itself, there are options. Many people don't do that. They copy paste from other programs, but there may not be sufficient clarity. In the PowerPoint itself, there is an option that you can use to design various kinds of graphs, line, pie chart, bar graph, area, all sorts of things you can do in PowerPoint itself. For example, here are 2 pie charts which were created with the PowerPoint. So if you use like rather than giving only text or only tables, if you use some images, graphs like this like your audience, your point will be conveyed in a stronger, more emphatic manner. Any comments on this slide? Basically, it is too congested, right? Even forget the phone, even on a proper projected screen, like people will not be able to read the variable names and understand the message and all. So you should not be using such in your thesis and all. It is fine. In your thesis, it is okay, but in a slide, it is better to split it. The context A in one slide, context B in another slide, context C in another slide, things like that. That way, like your points will be more clearer, your graphs will be more visible to the audience. And suppose there is a very complex chart or graph, especially in important presentations, you are like defending your PhD thesis or maybe some important presentation like that, then what you can better do is you have a printout of that. It is not necessary that your presentation entire thing is through your slides only. You take a printout, distribute that beforehand, and when you reach that particular portion, you request the audience to have a look at the printout. Then they can come back to your slides. That is also okay. This is a famous, rather notorious slide. Please have a look at that. This was made by some person in the US Army about the status of the US Army in Afghanistan. So how simple is that to look? So somebody in the army rightly commented about that. When we understand that slide, we will have won the war. So that is what, like your slide should not have so much of complicated information. It should be like easily legible to the audience. Now, in some depth about the smart art, I told. Smart art has been there in PowerPoint since about 2008. But unfortunately, especially in psychiatry, I haven't seen many people using that. But that is a very useful tool if like that is rather than your bullet points, it is more attractive to look at. And it even conveys the message in a stronger manner. I will show you some examples. It's very easy to insert the smart art. You have to just click that insert button and there is that smart art. Also other things like chart and text, this text box, everything can be inserted that way only. Shapes, everything comes from that menu only. So there are various types of smart art as you can see in this slide: list, process, cycle, hierarchy, relationship and all. And for each of these types, there are various designs which are available. I will give you some representative slides from my own past presentations just to give you an idea how this can be put into use in even presentations in psychiatry itself. This is an example of a list, a smart art. So you can see that rather than putting the risk factors include renal insufficiency and hepatic failure in a bullet point, If you put it like this, the point is conveyed in a stronger, more visual, more memorable manner. This is one example of process smart art. This is about the Morales two-factor theory about development of phobias. So like first there is classical conditioning, then after that there is negative reinforcement, especially if you use this with animation, that the kind of build, you first show the classical conditioning part only, then after that once you have explained that, you like make the negative reinforcement part appear. If you do that, like you will have the attention of the audience will get your point in a more clear manner rather than presenting this in a bullet point. This is a cycle smart art. In psychiatry, you may not get a lot of opportunities to use cycles, but in situations where it is appropriate, if you use that, especially along with the animations, then that also will help convey the point in an emphatic manner. This is the hierarchy smart art. Metacognitive beliefs are of positive and negative type. So there will be obviously in any presentation, you will be having some kind of classification. No, it has 2 types, 3 types. So rather than saying it in a bullet list, you use this kind of smart art that will, again, as I told, it will be more like emphatic. This is a relationship smart art, like neurocommunicative disorders, neurocognitive disorders and your dementia. So this NCDs in DSM-5 encompass the previous definition of previous concept of dementia. So to show that, like if you show a diagram like this, like the point is conveyed more clearly. So there is also another in the smart art group, there is one option to use photos also. And even again, if you use photos in an appropriate manner, like all of you know about the learning principles, right? Like text comes to the left brain and the images comes to the right brain, things like that. So the memorization for the audience will also be better if you use images. So there are various options like in the smart art itself to use the photos and images. This is from one of my presentations on somatization disorder. I could have simply said that, you know, in patients with somatization disorder, there is increased activity of limbic regions and also decrease in the grammar density in a bullet point. So it would not, people would have been thinking of something else that day most likely. But if you have like a slide like this with appropriate image of the limbic system, image of the gray matter and all, like at least you will have some of their attention. Again, this is another example of using photos. This is from one of my presentation about the role of families in mental health care. So positive of mental health professionals, you have a photo there. Shift community-based services, you have somebody sitting in the home. So things like that. So that is how you can use photos and the associated smart art to make the presentations more attractive. Text box is another feature. Again, I showed you earlier like how to insert that. Then there you have your smart art, everything. Along with that, you have the text box also. So there are various uses you can put text boxes into. I will show you 2 that are more relevant. Many a time you will be presenting some like papers, some articles that this article told so, this article told so, things like that. So one thing you can do is you can have the article in the background like this. Then the most salient point you want to highlight, that you can put in a text box like this. This the most promising evidences for bupropion, that is in a text box I have put it. So that way, like they get from which article this is and what is the take-home message in a very like easy manner. And also another use for text boxes is you can like mark the images. Like this is for one of my presentations for the nursing students. I wanted them to know the dopamine pathways and how the antipsychotics, the typical antipsychotics cause various adverse effects. So this I showed them an images. Then like using the animation, like as in the way we were talking about the builds. This is anhedonia. Then we have cognitive deficits. Then we have EPS. So I am using text box along with animations. So again, I am marking it using text boxes. This is something that you can do because most of the images, even if they have their own markings, they may not be big enough. Somebody will not be able to read that from the screen, especially if it is on a phone. So in such situations, for example, you see this mesocortical pathway, mesolimbic pathway, the font size is very small. That is from the image itself. So even the these are marked in that size, it will not be very readable. So these kind of text boxes are very useful there. Shapes are another useful feature that is available in the PowerPoint itself. Again, most people don't use that. There are multiple kinds of shapes which you can use, like again, to convey your messages in a more visual, more emphatic manner. Like earlier, I showed this slide, right? These arrows in the top. Those arrows I took from the shapes feature only. Yeah, here this cartoon I made, this thinking bubble I made using the shapes feature from the PowerPoint only. And also many a time it is said that at the end of your presentation, it is better if you give a summary, a gist of what all things you spoke, so that the audience will be able to remember that. So to create a visual summary of your entire presentation also, you can use the shapes. This is the last slide of my workshop on motivational interviewing, in which this entire thing I made using the shapes from PowerPoint only. This stop sign and these arrows, these text boxes, everything. So this kind of use you can put, if you have to put some mind into it, but if you do that, your audience will thank you for that, because they are getting the information in a very succinct, very visual, very memorable manner. Now moving on to the structure of your presentation, not about the individual slides, but the flow of the logic, the flow of the content. Again, like all of you know that like if I jump from one topic to another, suppose I showed you that slide on dopamine pathways, then I started speaking to you about schizophrenia and antipsychotics and atypical antipsychotics, you will be wondering now what happened to this person. So whatever you're talking about, there should be some flow. You should not be jumping on to like unrelated topics. That way, if you do that, your audience will be very confused. So you should ensure that it is like a story. There should be a definite beginning, a middle, and an end. There should be a natural and logical flow. So one way to understand how your article, how your slides are, how your presentation as a whole is flowing, is to go through this slide sorter view, which is available in PowerPoint. And also another the option, I don't know whether you people use that. In PowerPoint, there is an option to group your slides into different sections, images, smart art, you can see them here. So if you do that, and if you go to the slide sorter view, you will get an aerial view of your presentation, how it is proceeding from beginning to the end. And if you look at it this way, you may feel that no, images should come before data, or this slide should come before this one. That kind of an image you will get, and it will be very useful to you when you are planning your slides. And also when you are moving from one section to the other, let it be conveyed to your audience that now this section is done with, now this section has started. That way also they will be better able to organize whatever information you are giving them. They will not feel confused. They will know where they are on the way. So one of the ways include like to show your subheadings. These are the like one of my presentations in which I told them that I will be speaking about these 4 particular areas, right? Now, after that, once I finished the first area involving the families as partners in care, once it was finished, I showed them this slide. So which shows that now I am moving on to the second, things like that. So that way it is easy for them to like follow your train of thought. Or maybe as I was doing in this presentation earlier, whenever I am going to like a text, smart art, things like that, you show a definite like a slide. Even the PowerPoint itself, there is a section, things like that, if you go to the layout portion. So that way also, and like here you may notice that I use the animation, transition. So if you use that also, it will be conveyed to the audience that like now you are entering a, like it will be conveyed to them in a better manner. Now, even within a section also, like some of your topics may be covered in more than one slide. Even that can be conveyed using appropriate techniques. For example, this is from my presentation on EEG. This is on eye movement artifacts. After this slide, I have one more slide on eye movement artifacts. So what I did was like I did that ellipsis, those 3 dots in the title. So like after this slide, when this comes, they will know that this is also on eye movement artifacts, and that I am like I have moved on to another slide. This is not the previous slide. So you can do like this use of ellipsis also to convey that like you are within the same topic but on another slide. Now there are some features. Once your slides are ready, once you are like getting ready to make the actual presentation, there are some tools within PowerPoint itself that you can use. One is, it was there even before, rehearsed timings. Like you can make a presentation and using this clicking this rehearsed timings. So that way you will get to know like how much time your presentation is taking, how much time you are spending on each slide and things like that. Because many a time, all of you know, the chairperson says, stop, 2 more minutes, 5 more minutes, ringing the bell, warning, things like that. So that should not happen. If you have rehearsed sufficiently, like that problem will not, especially in your award paper, you will get maybe 8 minutes for the presentation, things like that. And I have seen people in the 8 minutes, 6 minutes, they will be presenting the introduction. Once the time they get to the methods, the time is up. So to like solve all those issues, it is better if you rehearse this. Now this is a new feature that came, one of the latest versions of PowerPoint. I don't know if you people have that. It is called Rehearse with Coach. That is a very interesting feature. What it does is you click that, then you start making the presentation as if you are presenting to the audience. Then the PowerPoint will automatically, it is all the artificial intelligence now. So it will keep on automatically giving you feedback. You are speaking too fast. You are speaking too slow. Even if you say basically, simply, things like that, it will say, no, don't use filler words. You should not be doing that. It gives you the warning. Even it checks your text for grammatical errors and typos, things like that. So it's a very useful feature. You will get a lot of information from this particular. If you have the latest PowerPoint, then you can try that. Here's with the coach. Very useful feature. Now, when you are making the presentation, that time, there are some points to which you will be paying attention to. I think some of these Dr. Bihang had already raised in the second lecture in this series. Stop talking when appropriate. You may have noticed when I showed you that complex graph, or when I showed you, I think, yeah, two times when I showed you that complex graph or that cartoon, and I gave you some time. I stopped talking. So it should be there. When you have given some complex diagram, photo, things like that, give them a few seconds to take that in. After that only you start talking. Otherwise, they cannot pay attention to what you are talking and the content of the slide at the same time. So that way, that multitasking will not be possible. The point will be lost. So you can have brief pauses in your presentation. There are various keyboard shortcuts. I don't know how many people are aware of that. I don't know if even whether it works in Zoom, but they are very useful when you are making a presentation in a real physical locations. For example, there is one called B. Clicking that, I think it has gone blank for you now, right? So that means the screen will be blank. So now the entire attention will be on you, so that you explain whatever you want to tell. Then after that, you click again B, you are back to the slides. That way, the audience, that you can direct the attention of the audience to you, that you don't want them to keep staring at the slide. Then home means whenever during your presentation, if you click the home button, you will reach the first slide. If you click the end, suppose the chairperson tells you, you stop now, then you click the end button, then you are taken to your thank you slide. Enough, good. Then also, especially during your award papers, somebody asks you, you show me your table 1, so things like that. So if you remember the slide number, you just type that slide number and click enter. You will be taken directly to that slide. So that saves you a lot of time, so that others can ask more questions. You can give your answers and you can score more marks. That is another technique. F1, if you click F1, basically it will show you various keyboard shortcuts that are available. So when you are in PowerPoint, you can try clicking F1 and see for yourself what are the various shortcuts. Finally, about all of us are presenting through Zoom only. Not many of us are getting a chance to make presentations at the actual podiums and all. So there are certain points that you should be knowing when you are presenting through Zoom. Again, as I told you, most of this is common sense only. Keep it simple, as I told you earlier, because if you have loads of text on a slide, and or most of the people who will be they will be accessing listening to you from their phone, they may not be able to read all that and all. So it has to be simple always, but when it is a Zoom, it is a webinar, then it has to be more simple. You should keep your video on. I personally feel it as an insult when you are attending a webinar or something like that and the person is not even showing the face. So as much as possible, you should show the video, because all of us know that non-verbal communication is also important. Communication is not just the text on the slide or just the slides. So your expressions, your gestures, all these should be conveyed to the audience. So you should remember to keep the video on. And you should use appropriate lighting. Actually, many a time what happens is people will have their tube lights on their roofs, and they will be in a shadow, or maybe there will be huge shadows under their eyes, and they will look like some of the villains from the movies and all. So to prevent that, ideally, what you have, by the end of this, when I stop my slide sharing, I will show you how I have done the lighting for this presentation. So there should be sufficient lighting on your face, so that the audience gets to see you, to see your expressions, so that they get the message more strongly. And many a time we keep the a laptop or phone on the desk or on the table, and it will be you're looking at some Qutub Minar or something. Somebody will be getting such very distorted views. Especially for important presentations, the camera should be at the eye level. I have kept many of my books under my laptop now to raise the height. So something like that you can use, so that eye-to-eye contact is better and the communication is better. And you should look at the camera, because again, in psychiatry, I don't have to explain to you about the importance of the eye-to-eye contact and all. especially if you are reading from the slides, looking here, or maybe you are looking at your notes and reading and all, that eye-to-eye contact is not there. And or maybe you may be looking at the, I like minimize that video when I start my presentation. Otherwise, you will have a tendency to look at your own video, how do I look, things like that, or maybe how does the audience react to see their videos. So I put it fully off. I have my slides and that top bar, and I am looking at the camera as much as possible. So that is what you should be doing. That way, the communication is better. Dress appropriately. Most of you may be presenting from your home, but you don't come in your like that picnic t-shirt or your nightgown and things like that. No, like dress appropriately for the occasion. No distractions. Even during these upskill series, I have seen in people's video, like family members moving in the background and things like that. Or maybe some notifications pop up from the presenter's screen and all. So as much as possible, you should close all other softwares in the system. You should have as much as possible only the PowerPoint and Zoom open, and also other kind of distractions also you should minimize to keep the attention of the audience on you. So finally, some miscellaneous tips from my experience. Backing up, I think these days it is not that significant because most of you have your Google Drives, everything ready. So have, or maybe put the original file itself in the Google Drive and keep working from there. I have seen people in ANSIPs and all. I ask person, what are you doing? I lost my pen drive. Now I am typing from my slide from the scratch. Before the presentation on the previous night, the person is like creating the slide from scratch. So those things should not happen. Always have multiple backups. And especially like you are using the latest version of PowerPoint and all, and you are going to some location where you are not very sure whether they will have the latest version of PowerPoint and all the bells and whistles that you have put into this, whether they will be visible there, because they may be still having Windows 98 or things like that. The older version of Office and all. So what you can do is, this is a free software from Microsoft, PowerPoint Viewer. It can be, you can have that also in your pen drive. You can install that in any computer. So that will open any version of PowerPoint. So that way, this particular issue of your host having an older version of PowerPoint, that can be circumvented. Font issues, again, you may be using a lot of fancy fonts that you found online and you go to present somewhere else and it will not come up there. Everything will be, entire layout will change. So what you should do is, you should carry the font with you and also install that in that particular system before that. Or there is another option also, you can embed the font in the slide itself. You can try that. There is one more issue, especially in ANSIPs, and I don't know how many of you, the PGs, will have a chance to attend an ANSIPs physically, and like the way all of us did, no, you go to one computer where for all the 13, 15 holes, the slides have to be put in one place, central station. Then it will be connected to your podium. So if that is the case, it is not sufficient to put install the font in that particular computer. The font has to be installed in the computer from which you will be making the presentation. So even if the slide is installed in the central station, like that font you have to install in that podium laptop itself. So all this kind of care you have to take. Video and audio files. Many people, they embed video, audio and all. And it is, in my experience, it rarely works. If you are carrying your own laptop, and then it is fine. Otherwise, if you carry a file and you try to play it in some other system, usually there is some codec problem, this, that. So if you have some important audio or video files, you at least you carry your own laptop, or you check it in the system beforehand. Whatever updating, anything is needed, you do that before your presentation. Otherwise, you will cut a sorry figure. Like you will be like, if the audience is waiting and you are like frantically searching the buttons and things like that will happen. If you want to distribute handouts, this is not a decided question. Like when you should do that. Suppose you do that before the presentation, especially if there are lots of concurrent sessions, that people will take the handout and leave and go to the next session, so that they can read from your handout, they can listen to the other speaker. So especially if there are lots of concurrent sessions, it is better to distribute handouts only after the session, not before the session. And especially for some presentations, you are invited as a speaker and you are allowed 30 minutes to present, and you had, as I told you earlier, their slideshow and the rehearsed timings and all you have done, you know that you will finish in 30 minutes. You are very confident. And when you are about to start, they are running late, the inaugural function, which they planned for 30 minutes, took 1.5 hours. Now the chairperson will ask you, could you finish in 15 minutes? And you will like, oh, I had put so much effort. No, that should not happen. There is no point in getting angry there. Better you always have in program, especially if your session is in the second half or something, you have like an alternate plan B also, a cut down version. Maybe if your original its presentation has 30 slides, you have another one with 20 slides also. So that if they ask you to cut it short, okay, then you close this, you open the other one and present, so that like everybody is happy. Again, where you are supposed to put your presentations, do it earlier. Many a time when especially PG presentations and all, when the presentation is about to start, there are 6 people standing in a queue with their pen drives with the audiovisual person. Don't let that happen. You be there at the earliest and put it there, so that at least you also be the stress you feel before the presentation is also reduced. Thank you. I will show you just the lighting arrangement. I will stop pause share. Now I have to stop share. I will also remove this just a minute, background. To remove that. There was one none option. I am not able to see it. Chintan, how to do that? How to remove this upskill banner from this? Yeah, I will close it from here.
You have to go in the.
No, I deleted it.
You have to remove background.
Where, from where?
You can go to start video.
Yeah, I am. Then
you go to choose virtual background. Click that.
No, I am in background and filters there.
Yeah, there are two options. Background and filters. One, you make it none. You make it none.
None. Yes.
Okay. None is there. Yeah, sorry. I had done it before. Somehow I forgot. Okay. So now I think you can see this. This is the rim light that I have. This has been lighting my face from my left side. That was how I got as part of my lighting. Then like I have in my room, this is my study room. I have one CFL on my roof. So I remove that. When I have a presentation, I attach that to my window like this. So it puts a light from here. So both sides of my face are covered. So that way, like rather than having it from the top and your eyes being in dark and all, this kind of a setup 2-point lighting. It is in actually it is called a 3-point. There should be one from the back also, so that your head gets a rim light kind of thing. I don't have that. I have my room tube light only. But otherwise, this way your face will be properly illuminated. So that's it. Thanks all.
So thank you, Dr. Shaul, for your excellent presentation. Now, audience are invited for questions. I am just allowing them to unmute themselves and they can ask directly or just put their question in the chat box. If anybody wants to ask any question, they can unmute themselves and ask directly, or you can just mention in chat box.
Yeah, I will begin. I mean, as long as the PGT is getting ready, I will just have a question to Dr. Shahul. How to find out, supposing I am making a presentation and I have downloaded a few images from Google. So is there a way to actually find out whether that particular image is copyrighted? I mean, is it actually visible? Because on the I cannot
so
recall.
You have to check that page itself. That website, that page, they will it's somewhere in the page.
So it is clearly written in the page.
No, most of them like they will have like copyright things like that. It will be written. The best option is, as I told, to go to the Creative Commons wala. In that, like they will give you only the free images.
Creative Commons.
You are not there in the beginning when I started. I will show it. Just a minute. I will go to my. Is my browser visible?
Yes.
Okay. I will show you. So this is I am searching for brain. All the images are there. you go to these tools, usage rights. So there they have commercial and other licenses. ऊपर में है एक this is coming in between. Creative Commons licenses. So if you click that, all these images are free of copyright. That you can be sure. They are in a Creative Commons license. So maybe you may have to like acknowledge the a creator. So maybe in the bottom or somewhere you mentioned copyright belongs to this person, or maybe in the end you have a slide like image cuts or something like that. All these are like you can use anywhere. So this is one method. Even there are other search engines also like that help you search for free images.
Okay.
So that is one.
That is better rather than choosing up any random image and yeah. Okay. Thank you. I was not aware of this because it is becoming a big problem these days.
Okay. Yeah. That is why I mentioned that in the presentation.
One question from my side. Rears as a the second option in 2010, PowerPoint 2010.
Which one? No, I don't think it is there. It came only recently. At least I saw that only last month. I don't know when it was introduced. I checked. I searched Google when it was started. It was not clear to me. But I have the latest one. So in that it is there. It is called Microsoft 365 or something. Whatever I have.
Okay.
So older version is not there, but it is a very useful tool.
Yes.
Especially if you are making repeated presentations.
It is available with 365.
365, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because it monitors your speech, your accent, and how and in the end it gives you some statistics like how many words per minute you are talking, what is the ideal, and things like that. How much time you are spending on a slide, and which slide took more time. A lot of interesting statistics also it gives. Very useful too.
I think we will wait for 2 minutes more.
Yeah.
If no question, then we can just end it.
Is there anything available, Shaul, was regarding the grammatical correctness of the PowerPoint language? Supposing when we write a text, we have to be very particular about how the sentence begins and how the sentence ends. But in PowerPoint, mainly for the sake of brevity, we often do not write a complete sentence the way we would have written had it been a piece of literature. So is there anything, any comment from you on that side? I mean, is it correct or is it wrong?
It should be done like that only. You should be using telegraphic language as much as possible. The message is conveyed, but the slide should be clean. And this rehearsed with the coach that even checks for grammar, the language for grammar. Even last time when I had a presentation on COVID, so rehearsed with the coach feature told me you should not be using the word manpower because that is not gender neutral. Even that kind of
person power.
Yeah. Yes. So that's a very good tool. Otherwise, you can do as briefly as possible. That is the best thing.
Anyone have any question?
I think we will call it.
Yes, we can then end. So thanks one again, Dr. Shaul Amin, for your very much innovative new inputs. We have also learned something, and let's see in next session some more people will be there. Thank you all, team, Dr. Sujit, Dr. Dhruv Jyoti, and thank you again, Ayushi, for giving nice introduction. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Take care. Good night.